So the first we have, I'll start with Danielle. And Danielle, the first question that I have for you is, how do you approach the valuation and the starting listing price with your clients?
So I basically usually, when we talk about price, I always, state that what I'm showing you are the facts. So when I bring in the comps, I have, homes that are maybe not as equivalent, lower price. They may have less features, maybe a little, smaller. Then I always have homes, when we're doing the comps that are, maybe they're nicer, they're more updated. And then if we can find a perfect comp somewhere in the middle, where I'm leading them towards, we focus in on, this is the home that's, most similar to your house. But I do a lot to lead up to that. A lot in the listing presentation, but I also always have information with me about homes that were overpriced, homes that sold above market.
Maria, hold on, Maria, can you
Sorry,
mute
I'm
yourself?
sorry.
Could you mute everyone?
Okay. So I'm very prepared with the market when I'm going into the listing presentation. So I do bring everything with me, whether I have to pull it out, not always, but I make sure that I truly do know all of the comps. And sometimes, you do have to make some phone calls ahead of time. Why didn't this sell to a listing agent? If you're unsure, but really just as long as you know the numbers and you know the houses, I present that confidence. Like, I know every single house on this market, why it sold at this price, why it didn't sell at this price. And sometimes, I always try to ask them before presenting the comps, do you, is there a number that you have in mind? Because if you look back on the tax records, pretty much anybody who's refinanced probably had to get some type of appraisal. So they may have a number in their head. So you have an idea of which way and which direction that they may be leaning towards. So you know exactly what comps to present and how to present them.
So what if they have an unreasonable expectation of value, which often happens?
So if it's unreasonable, then this is this is really where the work comes in. And it always goes back to, these are the facts. This homeowner listed at this price and it sat on the market and they didn't get their number. So I always push back, and I do approach it more than one way. So there is like the auto evaluation where you have, listen, this is what an appraiser is going to use to appraise your home. So there's no reason in overpricing it if it's not going to appraise. So there are a couple of things that you can remind the homeowner, and this is where you have to say, we have to take the emotion out of this and go with the facts and show the examples, because there's always an example of a home that's overpriced. And I always just push back on, these are the facts. This isn't, this is what a buyer is going to use as well when they come in with their agent, when they go to put an offer in on your home. And even in the hottest market, homes that are overpriced, buyers are very, very smart and educated. They're going to say, let me sit back and wait until they reduce the price. And once your home is on the market, in this market, for more than 2 weeks, as you go into 30 days, you're not getting asking price. So why are we overshooting here? And then I also go into all of the strengths of pricing it right, where they gain control, where they have complete control over, when they get multiple offers, which buyer that they want to choose based on terms.
Is the concept to come to what you mutually agree is the market value of the house? Is that what you're trying to, move towards?
you're moving towards a price that is going to get them top dollar, which in this market, the price that's going to get them top dollar is, it has to be at market value or slightly, under, but I would say, we pretty much know what that number is. And I will say that number is, the listing price that's going to, market value, the listing price that's going to get them top dollar.
So have you ever reverse engineered a conversation? And what I mean by that is say, hey, here's a seller who, put their house on at 3%, 5% below what they thought it would be. Here's how that behaved, and walk them through that process.
I also use the example too, like, as far as, bank owns properties or properties that are in horrible condition as is, they use that strategy. They use that strategy to get the multiple offers. And then you see them as they get 50,000, 100,000, sometimes over asking price. So that would be, a good example of showing them, listen, they know what they're doing. This is, what they do for a living, and they're still getting, over asking price, because it's all about the pricing it right.
And would you agree, like sometimes you feel like the seller's trying to convince you that their house is worth more as if you were the ultimate buyer?
Yes, but I don't usually, it's very rare when you really know the numbers and the competition. Sometimes it's very, very eye-opening for them. And they sit back and are like, oh, and you can show a house that, is definitely superior to theirs. And you can show them how their number is off. And you can also go, when you're there presenting the facts and you have all that knowledge behind you, I find that they truly do have their moment where they realize that they're wrong.
And in terms of determining like the value, you're looking at some comps. Do you ever use any other metrics to get you there?
So besides the comps, I take a look at a couple of different things. So I'll use the regular comps in the neighborhood. Plus, I'll look at appraised value sometimes on all of them. And there's a calculation you can do with appraised value.
You mean assessed value, right?
Yes, assessed value. Yes, okay. The assessed value. So I'll go about it, the assessed value. And then if it's going to be a real numbers type of conversation. Maria, we have a spreadsheet in the office that we use, what Otto uses in order to come up with the exact selling price. It's a little more complicated, but if it's, I don't always need to go that route, but I make sure that I have all that information in case I do.
Now, Eric, are you on with us now?
I saw Eric.
Eric Pruitt. Because I was
I'm here.
Okay, I was speaking with Eric last evening, and he was sharing with me a couple of complementary things that he does in order to determine that market value is a basis to work off of. So Eric, can you are you on camera or are you just on phone?
There we go.
There we go. So the Eric Pruitt team. So Danielle is in our Tinton Falls office. Eric is here in Palm Beach Gardens. So Eric, you had mentioned to me last night when we were talking that there were a few different data points that you use to come to value and to support your opinion. Do you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, I used to, prior to this South Florida market exploding like it's done for the last 2 years, I used to do a real thorough in-depth market evaluation, and started about 1.5 years ago when we started going up 20-30% in 12 months. Anything I comped, other agents came in and listed ridiculously high over that, and guess what? They sold them. And so, based on the competition, I have my laptop I bring with me. We do the CMA writing together. I say to them, So we're gonna pretend like you're a buyer, Mr. Seller. Let's go ahead and look at the competition. Let's look and see what's sold. And let's come up with what do you think is what we think is a reasonable value. But I also use Zillow's value, I use RPR's value, and I do HomeBot's value. So I'll have 3 different sources of value to come up with. And I'm no longer getting so firm on the prices as I have been, prior to 18 months ago.
So you're using, Zillow, RPR, which we all have access to through NAR, and HomeBot, that's a subscription, Eric?
Yes,
And how much is that?
it's cheap. It's like $25 per month for 500 contacts.
Okay. So this is in line with what Danielle was saying, gets us to what we really believe is what an appraiser would likely assess the property for, correct?
Correct.
You're using a scientific approach to come up with a evaluation model that would be like if they were refinancing. Now, is Rob Durso, are you on? And is there anything that
Yep,
Hey, Rob, I got
I'm here.
one more
Okay.
thing to say. Is what the great thing about Zillow and most of them now is they're showing the market peaked and now in our area is going down. So there's a history you can track in Zillow.
right?
It shows what the value was at and where it's going down.
Fantastic. That's a great point.
We show that to people to let them know, the days we're not getting the 20 offers anymore. We're not selling for 100,000 over asking price anymore down here. So it's definitely shifted back to normal.
Rob Durso.
Yes, sir.
So how do you approach the valuation conversation?
So 9 times out of 10, I'm finding sellers, they are extremely connected. They know what's going on in the market. So you have to make sure that you know also. And mentioning Zillow and all of the other online pricing things, you have to be aware of what's going on because they are. So that's first and foremost. If you're going to go out and wing a listing appointment, don't even go. Send somebody else. Send your manager because it's not going to work. Having said that, I agree with Danielle because you have to bring everything. You may not need it all, but you have to bring it. You have to have that, your tablet, you have to have all the comps. Even if you don't think they're appropriate, you got to bring them because that's the one they'll ask about. Well, what about that house down the street? Well, you're looking at a ranch and that's a 5-story, whatever. So I think before you even go on that appointment, you have to be well informed. Having said that, I always tell my folks, look, we're going to go for the highest realistic price. And realistic is the operative word. Because as the market changes and we adjust to what's going on, for example, I know that for a long time, buyers who wanted to spend $500 had to look at $400 to $450. They couldn't look at $500 because $500 was going to sell for $550 or $600. So the education part of our job has become extremely important because what a seller is thinking is going to happen is typically different than what actually happens. So if they're thinking, yeah, well, my neighbor sold for 600, so I should be asking 650. And the reality is that anybody looking at 650 thinks they have to spend 7. You have to educate the seller to understand that. So you may actually be listing the property for less than they think it's worth, but there's a reason for it. So the education part of it is super important. Obviously, as time goes and you get more familiar with your market and what you're doing, you get better at it. But I got to be honest, the education part of it, I think, is prime. You're going to have all your abilities together with you. You're going to have your PRPs and everything else. You've got to have the tax conversions where they show what the adjusted value is based on the assessment for each municipality. And you got to bring all the comps. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So this is for all three panelists. Would you agree that you're at an advantage when you have an educated client, or is that a disadvantage when you walk in?
Super advantage for me.
Danielle?
Yeah, it's an advantage that they're educated, but sometimes they still, like, if they have not sold a house in a really long time, you know, I still am coming up a lot of sellers who think that they need to list so they have some wiggle room to negotiate. So I do try to explain, and, you know, you have to acknowledge what they're thinking. And I say, oh, yes, I understand. It used to be that way. We are in this crazy different market now, where the asking price is the starting price, and it's getting the best results, pricing it right. You can only control two things, price and condition, and they go hand in hand. So sometimes, even though they're educated, they may not be completely educated on all the nuances and the marketing and things that we do when we're coming up with a list price.
Okay, Eric? Would you say education is a plus or a minus?
It just depends how stubborn they are.
Okay, let me reframe that for you, Eric. How about if we give them the education? Is that going to be a plus or a minus?
It's going to be a plus.
Okay, and what I think when a seller is educated, right, through honesty and integrity, they'll make a better decision. You would agree on that, right?
Yes.
And Danielle, you would agree on that unequivocally?
Yeah.
And Bob Durso, you agree?
Absolutely.
So what I'm hearing is this whole first part of pricing model is getting to what we believe, and maybe we want to use the term, this is akin to what an appraiser would come to if you paid somebody to appraise your house. This is not an emotional decision. This is location, condition, square footage, age, all those factors. Our CMA is not going to be designed to determine the starting price. Our analysis is designed to say, this is what an appraiser would likely come up with. And if we reframe that to that point, team, then it gives us the ability to educate them on different strategies to introduce it to the market. Okay. And for those of you who are watching, I want you to write down this message here. Ask better questions, speak less. All right. That's really important, is ask better questions and speak less. And we give you examples of this. And when you hear the strategy or the process that this is going, you're going to have this aha moment, okay? So these three panelists have given us ways that they come up with what they believe the value to be. They're going to be way better than I could ever be in my career, because I don't participate in the market. But if I have those data points and then I take it to a homeowner and I say, Danielle, you know, now that we have an idea of where an appraiser would assess your house, let's just call this the market value, right? Now, if we decide to move forward, there are three different options I'm going to give you. Now, do you think clients like options, or they like to be told what to do? Anybody think a client would shun options? No. So we go there, we have three different options that we can go with here. Traditionally, a lot of sellers will list it at what they expect the market value to be to try to sell it. We're going to call this the market approach. Historically, in the past, if you haven't sold a home recently, Danielle, you might be inclined to price it above the market value in order to have wiggle room on it. Now, that strategy in the past was effective. However, right now, you're going to get less activity by overpricing it or pricing it with room to negotiate down, that you might not get your optimal price. We're going to call this the lottery style. Okay, if you're trying to win the lottery, Bob, this is what you would do. but generally the lottery is a fool's bet, in my opinion. And the third option that sellers have to choose from is to use the auction approach. And I found my more savvy, especially repeat sellers, are opting to go with the auction approach, where we intentionally price it 3 to 5% below the market, or 3 to 8% below the market. And we find that when we do that, we get an abundance of qualified bidders or buyers bidding against each other in order to win the property. So with the auction style, you have more activity, more showings, more people bidding against each other. Now, Mr. Pruitt, if we had, 4 times the amount of people bidding on your home, what do you think that would do to the ultimate sales price?
Make it go up.
It would make it go up, right? So if we decide to put your house on the market today, what strategy would you like to use? So I'm not arguing. I will never be, if you ever go on a listing conversation with me, you'll never see me argue with a client over what the value of the home is. My whole process is to educate. So the 3 panelists here have given us an excellent strategy on how to come up with the market value. I'm guessing that sometime in your career, I'll just call you out, Eric, sometimes in your career, you give them clear evidence on what it's worth, and they still say, I want to go for more, right?
Correct.
So in that case, which don't get me wrong, it happens to me when I go out with you guys, and ladies, you want to go for more. I would ask this question. So Eric, if we put this $599 house or the $600,000 house on the market for $675, and I do all the marketing that can humanly possibly be done, and we present the house correctly and we don't get an offer, what's our next step? And you ask the homeowner that. And what do you think most homeowners are going to say? I'm going to just go around the panelist group. What do you think a homeowner would say, Eric?
They'll just say lower the price.
Lower the price by how much?
5%.
5%. So that's going to be 35,000. So we're lower at 35,000. How long we're going to wait?
Another couple of weeks.
2 weeks. And then Eric, if we're still 35 over what the appraised value is, and we haven't gotten any offers despite my full out marketing, how long what would we do next?
Wait another 30 days or so and see what happens.
We'll go down another 30 days and see what happens. So now I'm going to go to Danielle. So let's say this house is on the market for 60 days and we haven't had any offers. We lowered the price twice. Can you tell me what do you think the first offer is going to look like? And you'd be asking this to the homeowner.
You want me to be the homeowner?
Yeah, play it right. Yeah. So,
Yeah. So the first offer, yeah, it's going to be very low.
Why?
Because it's been sitting on the market for 60 days and they think they're trying to figure out what's wrong with the home.
Right. And I can tell you, Danielle, every single time I've had this conversation, every homeowner comes with that same answer. So I say, look, if we have these 3 options, which one would you really like to choose if we decide to work together to introduce it to the market? Because if it's been on the market for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 1, 2 price cuts, people are going to think you're desperate. People are going to think there's something wrong with the house. People are going to think that they have leverage. Now, let's roll back the tape here, Eric. Let's assume that we decided to put it on the market auction style and we had 7 bids on it in the first 4 days. Tell me, how do you think the price is going to look if we had 7 qualified, ready to perform buyers bidding against each other?
Going to go up.
And do you think sometimes when people are bidding against each other, they might go higher than they otherwise would just so that they can win?
Yes.
So if we decide to work together, what strategy you think we should go with, Eric?
Well, our sellers down here would still say, I want the auction style or the lottery style.
Wait, auction being a little bit below the market?
The market approach or higher.
So I'm going to tell you, Eric, everybody tells me the same thing until you try it.
All right.
Okay. And what happens is we don't own any of those prices, right? We just educate them. We all talked about an educated client will make better decisions. And the way that we educate them is by, putting out how the properties perform. And if you've ever been on one of my listing conversations, I do a lot of homework. And my homework might be, price per square foot to come up with market value. And I'll come up with a very defendable market value. And I love the ideas that you all gave me to support the market value. And then I'm going to go into the MLS. I'm going to look at how do properties that sell in 10 days or less or 5 days or less perform, and how do properties that sell in 6 weeks or more perform. And it could be 30 days or more, it could be 90 days or more, but you're going to look at the laggards in the market. And then you're going to show how they sell for a significant discount to the original asking price. And you're going to show how the houses that sell quickly always sell for more. I've never seen an instance where homes that sell for 5 days or less are getting less. Okay. And you can feel free to pick your numbers. And what I mean by this is, like, if there's a house that sold for 0 days on the market for, 10,000 below asking price, you can presume and tell the client that, look, this one probably wasn't fully exposed because it went under contract within 24 hours. So I have actually excluded that one. And here's what the other homes are looking like. And, how would you like to put this on the market, giving them those 3 approaches? I don't know, panelists, what do you think about that approach?
I'll try it.
Danielle?
Yes, I mean, I have tried that approach, after listening to you for the last couple of years. And they certainly, they get it. And when you have the facts with you and you have the examples, there's no denying it.
And the magic, Rob, one second before we the magic is not telling them, because I've seen agents bring these really convincing charts which show as your house is on the market over time, it goes for less, and they try to explain to somebody, but it doesn't have the same impact as asking an empowering question. Now I'm going to go to you, Rob, now. Or Bob.
Well, I was just going to say that the questioning part of this whole process is super important, because obviously for everybody who's been on a listing appointment, that the way people answer questions will prompt you to give responses that go along with that. So, why do you feel that way? Why, who told you that? And the who, what, where, when, how, why questions that we ask will also prompt appropriate responses that will help you get to understand what their thinking is. And I think knowing how your seller thinks is half the battle too. Them being educated is important, but understanding how they think is probably just as important, because there's going to be certain instances where you could have every single reason to ask a certain price, and they use gold-plated nails when they built my house. There's that reason that just makes absolutely no sense. But if you understand their thinking, you'll understand how to handle their process. So I think that's really important, is asking questions. And then, of course, like Rob said, you got to listen to the answer. And that's again, the reason why we do this. And those of us who are successful listing agents, we follow that process.
So Rob, have you ever done like a nice piece of collateral material and go on a listing conversation and not have to bring it out?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell people all the time, you've got to have everything ready. So you got to have the beautiful tablet presentation. You got to have that great printed presentation. And then you got to have the one inside your head. They're all the same exact thing, by the way. You just have to be able to present it differently.
So I'm gonna suggest, Rob, when you have all the information, you did your homework, you just present yourself at a different level. And it's like you don't even need to hand the material out because you know it like that, right? Eric, have you ever done have you ever done a great listing, drop off or presentation and never even cracked it open?
Yes,
Okay, Danielle, have you been there?
Absolutely.
So for everybody here, don't think that that was a waste of time, because the process of building that out is an insurance policy, and it's also a confidence boost because you know all the information. And if you have somebody else prepare it for you, it's not going to be the same content. You're not going to have that same level of confidence as if you went through it. Last question on this part. How long did it take you to prepare for an average listing, not one that's way out of your area and not one that's in the farm where you do every week? Eric, how long did it take you to prep?
probably about 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Danielle?
I mean, 30 minutes to an hour to really print everything.
Rob or Bob?
Yeah, 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes. Yep.
Fantastic. Now, who wants to go
Rob,
first
there's
on
a
the
question.
commission? I'm sorry, question?
There was a question in the chat. If you could just go through again the lottery way of pricing a house.
So the three, I'll just go through them all. So the auction style is intentionally pricing it below the market to get extra showings and a surplus of offers. Market pricing is basing it on what the comps are, and auction style is pricing it anywhere above market. Because if a property is above market, you're gonna have limited showings and limited activity.
Lottery style.
Or, I'm sorry, lottery style is when you price it over the market. Sorry for that misquote. Any other questions there, Robert?
No, that was the only one in the chat.
Sorry about that. So who wants to go with how do we have the commission rate discussion? How do you introduce that? How do you defend your commission?
So I could go quick.
Okay,
So I do, and I learned this earlier in my career about and I still use it and I like it. You know, my commission as a listing agent is 3%, and we can decide together what we want to offer an agent who brings the buyer. I actually do purposely print out agent versions of some of the comps and the listings that I know, you know, have some of the commissions on there of what they're giving out in case I need to show that. But I really, when I prepare during the whole listing conversation, appointment, as you're establishing rapport, that whole entire time from the second I walk into their house or before I walk into their home, I am preparing them for, you know, this conversation, and that's through confidence, my ability, and my skill. So they're hiring my ability, my skill, and I really believe that commission is all about confidence when you're presenting it.
fantastic. We'll go to
I agree.
we'll go to Bob Durso next. Go ahead.
So I agree 1,000%. I have not, but I will steal the, I get the 3%, and we'll discuss the compensation for agents, for the selling agent. I like that. But, you know, when you are prepared and your ABC, always be closing, you're constantly giving them a reason to value you. And when you attach a value to your service, they appreciate it and they understand it. So throughout the entire process, you have to show them value in what you're doing. And if you do it right, they won't even question it. However, there are those that always do. And sometimes, again, depending on who you're in front of, when they say, well, can you do it for less? And again, delivery is part of the whole process. You know, I look at them very seriously and I just say, no, I can't. So in the right circumstance, no is no. I'm sorry, I can't do that, or I'm not a discount broker. You know, there's all types of different ways that you can address that, but sometimes a simple no is, geez, no, works very well. And of course, again, depending on who you're dealing with, what you have in front of you will determine how you handle that. But no is always a good answer.
So, Eric, I liked your discussion. And Bob, thanks for sharing. And Eric, go ahead, share with me what you do.
So I tell everybody when they ask what the commission is, I said, you're going to pick out the commission. My commission is negotiable. Oh yeah, what do you charge? 5, 6, 7, or 8%. Which do you want to pay?
Okay, and then
But I show them. I do a tic-tac-toe board.
okay.
If I could do that on here. No, I don't. But I put a tic-tac-toe board. And I'll put 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4 on the 9 squares. And I said, we're going to reverse roles for a second. Rob, you're now the real estate broker. You have $1 million buyer. If he shows this house pointing to 2.5%, he gets 2.5%. If he shows this house, he gets 4%. Which one, if you show this house, you get 4%. Which home are you going to show first and try hardest to sell? And they also always say the 4%. And I said, well, in this market, it's not necessary to pay, 8%, and or even 7%. 5 or 6% is sufficient in our market right now to get your home sold. Which do you want to pay, 5 or 6%? The person who pays 6% will get more agents excited about showing their house than the one that pays 5%. And it goes probably 60% go to 5%, 40% go to 6.
And then what happens if somebody says somebody else is offering less? How do you engage that conversation?
Well, Rob, it's interesting. Someone's offering to pay less, correct? Yeah. You're hiring an agent. One of the major reasons you're hiring an agent is this ability to negotiate. And then negotiations doesn't start when they get the offer on your house. The negotiation starts right here tonight when I'm negotiating for my professional fee, the value of my professional fee. Why would you want to hire an agent that can't even negotiate on their best half to get what they're worth, to get this 5 or 6%? If you got someone who's willing to go 3.5 or 4%, if they're that willing to quickly cut their commission, what do you think they're going to do with the price of your house in order to get an offer? Discount brokers attract discount buyers. They get discount prices. Do the right thing, Rob. Let's go ahead and pay the 5 or 6% and let's get started tonight, okay?
All right.
It's the best one there is.
Any of our panelists have any other thoughts on that before we go to the last part?
I just want to say real quick that, again, depending on who you're dealing with, you'll handle it different ways. But what was just said is probably the best way that I've seen to handle commission. Is the way that was just presented. People understand it.
Fantastic. Now, how do we?
Hey, Rob, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not a big listing guy, but I just thought came across my head, which I'm sure the panelist guys are going, all the people are going to go, no, no, no. But like in Bergen County, it just seems like, because I deal with mostly buyers, everything is like 4%. But what if you go into a listing appointment, when you get to that point, they always try to beat you on the 4% here anyway. What if you said something like, 4%, but if I get you over asking, $5,000 or more over asking, I'm 5% because I'll get you over asking. And if I don't, okay, you get 4 like everybody else. And you show them the math that, like 5 or 10 grand over asking at a higher commission rate, even though you're paying me, the listing agent, more, you still make more because I got you, over asking. Do you think that might make you look really confident? Like, hey, this guy's going for over asking, so he'll make more money. And if we only get asking or less, he's going to be doing 4%. I just thought of that. Maybe it's a stupid idea, but I just wanted to throw it out there. Did that translate? Okay.
Well, I'm going to ask, this is our peer-to-peer. I'll ask our panelists' opinion.
So I have used that. I had a really, really, really stubborn client on price and commission. And that's exactly what I said. It came like out of my mouth because I was so frustrated. And I was like, listen, I cannot do that commission, but I guarantee you that if, you know, we get this amount of, like, if I get you this number, will you be, you know, if I can get you this number, will you be willing to pay my commission? And they were like, sure.
I don't even know how this would be a 2-hour class.
So I had to use that.
So how did it work on that particular sale?
On
Well,
that
You
particular
have to go and
sale,
tell in the Jersey
we,
contract. so-
they were
But you don't even
so
have, like,
happy.
Wait, somebody's
So I had to mute everybody. So if you can unmute yourself, Danielle and Rob Lippman.
Sure. So, you know, we have variable rate commission. So why should the commission always be variable rate as far as going down? You know, I really do believe it could go up. They were so happy and excited. And, you know, one of the conversations that I have when we are talking about commission is I have so many examples in this market. It's so easy for us right now because things are selling over asking and these clients are ecstatic.
And Eric or Rob, any comments before we move on?
Yeah. So one of the other things throughout the process is to say, you know, alternate choice and ask them in some cases, well, what's more important to you? How quick we sell it, how much you pay, or how much you get in your pocket. And they're always going to say what they get in their pocket.
So Rob, can you or Bob, can you repeat that? You asked them what
So-
3 questions?
The 3 questions are, what's most important to you? How quickly we make the sale, how much you get in your pocket, or how much you pay in commission. Most of the time, if they are honest, they'll say the most money, the least amount of time are the 2 most important things. What I get paid is never as important as what they get.
So Rob, I'm gonna piggyback off of a Tom Ferry panelist from years ago. I'll give credit where credit's due.
Rob, I got one response to that.
Okay, you go ahead.
Mr. Seller, what's the most important thing to you? You pay the lowest commission or you net the most money?
Mhm.
So
They always net the most money.
So yeah,
So-
and that could be the answer. And I would say, okay, so out of the 2 of them, what's more important?
So the 3 of you are geniuses because you've identified these data points, but I'm going to try to put it succinctly so that you can take a mental break when you ask this question, right? Somebody's driving, they're pushing you to try to convince you it's worth more. They're pressuring you for a lower commission. If you go to them and say, hey, you know what, Danielle, if you were to put these in order of priority for me, please, or Danielle and Eric, if it was a couple, right? Selling your house for the absolute top dollar, putting the most in your pocket, selling it in the shortest period of time, or having a stress-free transaction. Can you put those in order of priority from highest to lowest, right? Now, the magic to what I'm saying here is the solution to all 3 of them is the same, so we can take a mental break. Because if you price your house right, will it sell quicker? Yes. Eric, if you
Mhm.
price,
Yes.
if you position your house and price it right, will it be less stressful?
Yes.
Right? So the answer is this, what we come back with is always the same, but you might see like, you know, the 2 homeowners going, well, you know, I want the highest price. And then somebody might say, you know, for example, Danielle, we're there. Alan's wife would say, stress, no stress. We have to have no stress. Like we can't have stress because there's memories, there's emotional baggage here. So we were on a listing together, and obviously the gentleman of the house wanted to sell it for the most money as quick as possible. And the spouse was like, we need time here. You know, we've lived here for 30 years. So we just kind of reconciled those 2 things. But the end all to the question is, if you price it right, you know, you're going to sell it quicker, right? You have less showings. That'll be less stress and less stress by definition quicker. And you'll get a higher price, because I don't know any circumstances where, you know, a homeowner is going to hold out for a higher price. You know, I laugh when somebody goes, I'm in no hurry to sell here, Danielle. I can wait. right? Then you have to, when they put that vibe in the universe, that's when you ask the question, hey, so selling it for the most money, shortest period of time, least amount of stress, put those in order of priority. That person like this might say highest price, highest price, highest price. That might be that jerk. And you're just gonna be like, I have the solution for you. Here's how you do it, right?
Mhm.
And you know exactly how you're going to handle that. So I want to thank you, Rob Durso. That was very intuitive. You should be in coaching. And I'm going to take it to our last step here, and I want to just thank you both. All three of you. This has been excellent. The last question is, how do you go for the signature? How do you go for the close? And I'm going to throw a little curveball at everybody and say, let's assume that, they need to, paint the pink bedroom and the green dining room, and they need to replace some carpets. This might be, 3 to 6 weeks down the road. How do you get it signed today? Or do you? Like, what's the strategy? And I'm going to leave it off with, I've had many agents that have come to me and said, you know what, I went out there, we agreed they were going to list it, they got a pod, and then the neighbor came and bought it, and I was SOL. So who wants to go first on that one? All right,
So
Mr. Pruitt.
Okay,
Eric raised his hand first, Bob, you go second.
that's cool. That's cool.
So basically, the great thing, do you guys have it up there coming soon?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're allowed to put it in coming soon 21 days prior to it actually going live in the MLS. And I tell this, I get the sellers, I tell them a couple of things. I said, marketing is kind of like boiling water. You do have instant hots today, but usually you gotta turn the heat on and let it gradually build up and boil. Marketing similar way. So what we have now is coming soon. Let's go ahead and get the paperwork filled out now. And we'll start a pre-listing marketing campaign that we'll get it out there. So we built up a demand for your house. And when it hits the market in 21 days, instead of just having drips and drabs coming through, we should have a rush of water coming through and hopefully bid the house up to a higher price. But yeah, don't leave without getting the listing signed. And I put it in MLS, 21 days, seller to notify when to put in MLS.
So Eric, I think if we put it on coming soon, and we have, is it 10 days all of New Jersey, Rob?
14.
14?
2 weeks.
So we put it in with 14 days. Let's say it's not ready in 14 days. You can kind of get in
Change
a
it.
little.
You can extend it.
You can?
Extend it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we all like the coming soon concept. Okay, Danielle. So that's unanimous. Now, how do you go for the signature, Eric? You didn't know you're getting this one too. Like, how do you get them to feel confident, especially if like, hey, I was thinking of maybe having a couple of different conversations.
With other realtors?
Yeah.
Well, let's hear Danielle's first.
Let's hear what?
Let's hear
You want to hear mine? The signature?
Yeah,
So,
I want to talk to the brokers first.
So if they really want to start getting the house ready, and that's what they're hesitant about. So I'm all in with helping them getting the house ready. So a lot of times, okay, this is great. Let me help you get there. Let's do this together. What I found really works is photography. Let's set up the photography right now. When you start giving them things and doing things for them, even the seller's disclosure, like, we need to fill this out, you start discussing and you getting them to sign, some paperwork, it becomes a lot easier. But I do start offering services like, okay, you need to paint, I got a great painter. Rob, the appointment that we were on together where they are definitely not ready to sell, go on the market yet. I don't even know if you realize the first thing I did. So the inside of the house isn't ready, but I said, oh my gosh, this was the end of fall. Let's hurry up and take these photos while it's beautiful out. So I had a photographer go there the next day. You know, you're starting to get a commitment from them. 99% of the people, you start working with them and for them, you know, they get it. There's a commitment with each other there. But I have also been in that situation where if I lost something, it's because they sold it to the neighbor. So I actually talk about that a lot in my listing presentation and give an example of they were selling it to the neighbor for 600,000, but we put it on the market because of all of my marketing, all of the excitement, we got 700 and they couldn't believe it. They're like, we almost lost $100,000 by selling it to the neighbor. So I do a lot of stories and analogies.
Fantastic. Now, I'm going to say that if you're a career person, there's two type of agents. There are the type of agents that have lost a listing because they weren't protected, and there are agents that will lose one because they're not protected. I mean, one of the classic stories I have was almost $1 million listing in one of our agents' neighborhoods up in Randolph, where they were selling where they lived. The kids went to school. They coached baseball together. They went to the same church. They thought that this was solid. They give them the advice. All of a sudden, a pod comes dropped down on the front of their driveway, right? A neighbor comes over and says, oh, are you selling your house? I'll pay it to you, right? The client goes to their attorney and says, what do I do? The attorney says, you don't have a contract. You don't need to pay that agent anything. And you want to talk about a upset agent and somebody who's never going to do that again. I mean, that was the chain of events. The facts were 20-year friend, church together, coached the kids together, worked with them for 6 weeks to get the house ready to go on the market. And then they go to their attorney and they say, Mr. Attorney, what do? I didn't expect to get this offer. What do you think a lot of attorneys are going to tell him?
Take it.
You don't have a contract, right? They don't know that you did all that stuff. So why expose ourselves and put us in this situation? One of our viewers or listeners said that, you know, another thing is to get a waiver of broker cooperation before you put it on the market. When you do that, you can even sell it yourself directly. I think when you have it as a coming soon, Robert, you are a resident expert. You can't even show it yourself, right?
Correct,
That's correct.
correct.
So maybe having the waiver of broker cooperation for a short period of time might be an alternative.
Get an
So-
exclusive listing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A listing with a waiver of broker cooperation is the same as an exclusive, no?
Well, they're two steps of the same process.
They're two what?
Yeah, you have to have both to do
You have to
either
have both.
thing.
Yeah. So,
But I just want to throw something out there, Rob, real quick. You know, sometimes I think this question started out as, what are you doing if the seller says they want to interview other agents, basically, is what I think you were trying to get to. Is that right?
that is correct.
So it takes a little fortitude, but at that moment, a lot of agents say, okay, call me and let me know and blah, blah, blah. But a salesperson will stand up and say, well, what were you hoping to find out that I didn't provide? What questions would you ask? Why do you feel that's necessary? You go back to those who, what, where, when, how, why questions. And look, it's never going to work 1,000 times, 100% of the time, but it will work most of the time. You have to not be afraid to defend yourself and what you do for a living. That's like the old parking lot bailout, you know, when the days when we used to take buyers out in the car and we'd say, come on, let's go in the office and see what it looks like on paper. And they'd say, oh, I got to run, the babysitter's waiting. They would run away from you. And you have to have the guts to say, well, what exactly are you hoping to find out? And why do you feel that's necessary? And well, because I brought all of the comparables from the neighborhood, and that's a lot of times they'll say, well, I want to see if they bring other comps. Well, I have everything right here. What exactly did you want to know? You have to go that extra step, because sometimes it's them testing you to see how bad do you want my listing, or how dedicated are you to my home and getting this job? Are you going to fight for me? You know, it's like that date you want to go on sometimes. You know, are you going to fight for me if I give you the little brush off? Or are you going to really want to go out with me? Sometimes a homeowner wants to see how bad you want to get their listing too.
You can't let the seller off the hook that easy. You know, when they want to see other agents. I mean, that's what I tell my agents in the classes that I hold is you got to wow these people when you go to your listing presentation. I mean, you really have to really be prepared before you go out to that listing presentation. So it discourages them from seeing another agent. And if they still want to see another agent, like Bob says, you know, you just got to say to them, well, I showed you everything. And do you know that I'm capable of handling this sale? Well, yeah, we do. But, well, why do you want to see Cynthia? Well, we promised we were, you know, we would like to talk to her first. How about this? How about I call Cynthia and say, I just listed the property. If you have any buyers, bring them on by. And usually it works. And I convinced the sellers to sign with me. So there's different techniques and tactics you can use.
So Ron, I'm going to say that one of the, like the ending where you get to that point is often determined by the rapport, the trust, and the value you built during the whole process, right?
Correct.
You just can't have a slick get out of jail free answer at the end. Okay, you have to have the confidence because you prepared, and then you have to have the strategy to build the rapport so that there's trust that you can lean into to get that signed at that point. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Danielle, you looks like you're,
Yeah.
so,
Yes.
Eric, you agree with that? So like, don't overlook the ability to build rapport, because when you built the rapport, that's when you can go to the emotional bank account, right? And make a withdrawal and saying, let's get this signed today. Right? Because if you,
Slick is never slick. They can see slick coming a mile away. You have to do this throughout the entire appointment. You have to build that trust and rapport. But my point about asking those questions is not to be, I don't want to come across as slick, but you have to be willing to fight for that listing. Because they will throw that, well, you know, my neighbor said, or this one said. You have to be able to say, well, why do you feel that way? Or who gave you the impression that would be a good idea?
right.
That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I think this was an awesome panel here, and Ron, I loved your idea of asking, like, say, hey, is there anything that I didn't address? Or maybe it was Bob, you said that anything I didn't address so that we can, you know, get this accomplished today, because I know you're really a busy person, and getting here together, you know, I appreciate the time, but, you know, let's get this done is basically the vibe, and the words are almost secondary to the vibe, right? So look at, you know, I might even pivot there and say, okay, you know, when do you want to have it on the market? You know, okay, so when will you have the painter here? All right, let's get this signed today. And sometimes they even forget about that they wanted to interview somebody else. And it's not being slick, it's being genuine, it's being who we are. And if you really are just looking to make a quick commission and to do a down and dirty job, they're going to smell it and they're going to run away from you, right, Ron? I see you doing this. So you have to do the
that
homework.
ain't going to work. I mean, being slick is good. I mean, but you have to be honest and sincere about your presentation. You got to convince them that this is how it goes.
So I want to just put this, and maybe this is not appropriate. I apologize for the language, but you want to be a badass, but not obnoxious.
Right.
All right.
I'll buy that.
So you know, at the end, you know, it really comes down to, you know, what you know, hey, Ron, if there's anything I didn't do that shows you that I can sell for the most shortest period of time, least amount of stress, let's have a discussion about this so that I can solve that problem, right? And you know, Rob Durso, you said it doesn't work 100% of the time, but it'll work a lot of the time, okay? And this is another one that I would encourage you to use if you buy into it and you believe it. And this would be like this, Ron. If the only thing I ever did was do a good job, get a 5-star review from you and sell your house, you know, I don't even want to be considered. I want to deliver an experience where you'll think about referring me to your friends and family in the future. That's what my goal is. And if people knew that was what your goal is, do you think that they might feel a little bit differently? And if you said that from the heart, because I know everybody on this call that I can see believes that, you know, the client sitting before them is not just a commission check. Okay, it's a referral for life. And if the customer understood that, the homeowner understood that, I think they would behave differently. Would you agree?
I agree.
So we're 1 minute over. I want to just give a big round of applause for everybody. You guys were awesome. Everybody that got here on Super Bowl Monday and spent an hour with us, I hope you got some value. And I'm going to keep this going as long as there's a demand and we have agents willing to share. I love this platform. So everybody have a great productive day. If you're here in South Florida, we have our awards this week. And for everybody in New Jersey, congratulations. You guys all made us the #1 units and #1 volume office in New Jersey. I'm so proud of all of you. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.